All right, it is 1 o'clock and we want to be respectful of everyone's time. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Just a few things before I introduce our speaker. Just remember that this is being recorded. Anything you say can and will be used against you in PayMaster. And also, if you need to ask a question, there's a chat box. So if you want to go ahead and open up the chat box, it is down in the bottom right corner and it looks like a little index card. So you can go ahead and write in any question that you have and we will make sure that it gets addressed. You can also raise your hand because everything is muted, but if you need to be unmuted because we don't understand your chat, we can do that as well. So again, this is being recorded. Welcome everybody. Happy Friday. We are so glad to have you with us here at PayMaster, and we have a really great presentation for you today. Nicole Anderson, who is a guru of all things HR, as well as a published author, is going to be going over talent acquisition and employee retention, which I know is a real hot topic with a lot of people right now. So she's going to be able to give us a lot of good information, things that'll be helpful in terms of running your business and maintaining those great employees that you really want to hold on to. Romeo is with us as well. As you know, Romeo is the CEO of PayMaster, and I'm sure most of you have spoken to him at one time or another, especially if you've had a really complex payroll, because he is the Wizard of Pay. That movie is going to be coming out late 2022, so watch for that. But until then, I am going to give it over to Nicole. And again, Nicole, thank you for giving us your time this afternoon and bringing this information to our clients.
Absolutely. Thank you all for having me. Happy Friday. I know if anybody is as excited as I am about it being Friday, it's going to be a great weekend. And a little bit about myself is I've been in the HR space for over 16 years. I've been in my own business for 5. I own an HR solutions firm called Mend, M-E-N-D. And I also own Mend Recruiting, which is a recruiting firm. I am also a published author. HR is Sexy, Revolutionizing Human Resources. And I wrote that book for a business owner and an entrepreneur versus from an HR standpoint and directly for HR. One of the exciting things that you'll be able to see during the presentation is that I really try my best to cater a lot of my communications to our entrepreneurs and business owners, and try to have options and solutions that can help solve problems versus giving you more problems from an HR standpoint. So with that, I would like to get started in the interest of time. I'm going to talk to you today about a hiring culture and give you some stats as it pertains to our current situation with talent acquisition and retention. If any company that I generally go to, that is one of their main challenges, which is hiring and then keeping the individuals that they hire. So we're going to go through. I am definitely open to any questions during. I would love for this to be as interactive as possible. And I just want to make sure everyone can see my screen. If somebody can confirm.
We can see it. And as a reminder, everyone, if you have any questions, you can use the chat box, which is down at the bottom right, and it looks like an index card. You can also raise your hand if you can't find the chat box.
So my first question for everyone is, do you have $5 million sitting in your bank that you could give away? Like just hand it to somebody that you want to donate to, or you just want to give it away to somebody. Most of you are going to tell me that I do not have $5 million to just hand off. And I'm going to tell you why this $5 million is so important. About 8 years ago, I was an executive for a national law firm, and they brought me into that firm to become to make change, to figure out why they were having so many issues. And I found out that over a 2-year period, they had spent over $5 million in turnover. Like it just went away. The money was just bleeding. And then after I brought that to the CEO or the managing partner's knowledge, they thought that the way to curb that number was to let go of $5 million more in salaries the day before Christmas or the week before Christmas the following year. So in essence, they had about $10 million in turnover. So when I went to him, a couple of the things that I told him was that we needed to have a fast and thorough interview process. We needed to have quick, effective onboarding, and we definitely needed to have follow-up. A lot of times you will hear HR people tell you that, and you'll hear business coaches as well tell you that you need to hire, slow to hire, quick to fire. I believe in that in a couple instances, but through my experience, if the way that candidates are these days is that your good candidates will go within 3 to 5 days. So hireable individuals will be off the market within 3 to 5 days. So if you sit on your resumes that are in Indeed or in LinkedIn, if you sit on them and then try to get those individuals 7 days later, more than likely they're already interviewing and gone, or they've already accepted offers somewhere else. Secondly, if you're pulling them through a lot of interviews, like calling them back for 4 or 5 interviews, they're going to get tired of coming back. And if they currently have a job, it's going to be hard for them to get out of coming that many times. So having a fast and thorough interview process was my first hiring recommendation. And then quick and effective onboarding. I don't know if any of you have been familiar with onboarding. So you get an offer, and then even if the candidate starts in 2 weeks, sometimes onboarding takes place 3 to 4 weeks later. And so we'll hire somebody within 2 weeks. So they'll come on board in 2 weeks, they'll get their paperwork done, but then they don't go through training or anything for 2 additional weeks because we want them to get acclimated to the location or to our business. And so we kind of forget that they don't know what they're doing when they come on board for the most part. Or if we're hiring people who are skilled, we think, oh, well, they know how to do the job, so let's just make them go through the job, or let's just let them go. So a quick and effective onboarding is electronic and paperless. The training programs are outlined ahead of time, and you have a mentor and buddy assigned to those employees. And the last hiring recommendation that I made to them was to follow up. HR or a leader should be follow up with those employees for the first 90 days, biweekly, having meetings, understanding what to do. And the managers need to have a really active process in having 2-week reviews with those employees just to make sure everything is going good. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through. So back to the law firm that I mentioned at the beginning. They destroyed lives, families, and their reputation in the industry by doing the $5 million reduction in salaries. Your reputation in a community makes or breaks whether you're going to hire and retain someone. And I don't know if any of you have went and Googled your company on Glassdoor or looked at Indeed reviews to see what former employees or current employees are saying about your organization. But I would highly recommend that you go do a Google search and look at reviews from employees. Glassdoor, salary.com, and Indeed, which now has reviews. You should take a look and go look at your company page and see what people are saying about you. The law firm that I worked at, I couldn't hire an individual for 6 months. And we had attorney positions, we had paralegal positions, we had office admin positions. We were paying good in the market, but our reputation preceded us. So hiring and retaining is definitely about your reputation. So that was an example of a bad hiring culture. And I talk a lot about hiring culture when I go into any organization, because it is just as important as a workplace culture. You have to have things happen during the hiring process to get individuals to come and stay at your organization. And what is a hiring culture? It brings to life the values of the company before the candidate is hired. It's very intentional. It consists of every member of your organization, and it is welcoming. I cannot say this enough. When you build a culture that does little with welcoming new hires, you immediately show what the company is like. I don't know if any of you have been new at a location and know what it's like to go into an organization and not feel welcomed. I have. I've actually walked into a client. It was a large electronics manufacturer, and I was there to help build training and development. And nobody knew who I was. They didn't know if I was a new hire or not. And I walked into the HR department, and not one person spoke to me. And nobody had anything good to say to me. They weren't welcoming. And so I couldn't imagine what an employee felt like. They didn't know if the organization had brought me on as an employee or if I was a vendor. They had no idea. So it's very important that your hiring culture starts as soon as an employee is going through the interview process. Your leadership at all levels need to be trained on mission, vision, and values. And you also need to hire based on your mission, vision, and values. One of the biggest things with millennials and Generation Z is corporate social responsibility. They want to know that you're an advocate for things. They want to know that you are looking at social issues and having a philanthropic side of your business. They're looking for that. And you want to hire individuals that work alongside that mission and vision so that you have a cohesive team. You can do things that are politically neutral. You can do things that are racially neutral. You can do things that are socially neutral that affect all parties. One of the biggest things that I push companies, if they don't have a corporate social responsibility direction, is that I talk to them about mental health. Mental health is a huge, especially since we're dealing with that horrible virus, COVID. We won't talk a lot about that on here because I know everybody's tired of hearing about it. But mental health in the workplace has become a huge piece of that work-life balance and what people need to do to take care of their mental health. So having a corporate social responsibility that's neutral on all aspects, politically, socially, and etc., goes to mental health. So I always recommend you could also always have values in the mental health. Once you have your mission, vision, and values, it's very important that everyone is trained on your mission, vision, and values, and they know and they can speak to it. One of the things you can easily do is send out a 1-question survey monkey to your staff and ask if they know what your mission, vision, and values are. And if one person says no, then you know that you need to train your staff on that. And then once it's time to bring on a new employee, the leader and the team members of the group, they would be included in that onboarding and be able to articulate what you're looking for in the organization and what your values are. I'm going to go off on an HR piece right now. One of the things with mission, vision, and values, and I know that any training you go through will mention these, is that make sure that your policy and procedures match your mission, vision, and values. And the example I use is always dress code. So if you have a dress code that is business, you have to be in business or business casual, but you have a a vision and a value that says creativity and innovation, but you're restricting dress code to business suits and business attire, are you really a creative and innovative company? Are you really articulating your mission, vision, and values in that dress code policy? That's my little HR tidbit, but that bleeds over into your onboarding process. When you're bringing an employee on, are you showing them that you're actually articulating and living in your organization to your values? So workplace culture economics, 70%, and this is as of 2021, 70% of employees report being unengaged at work. 46% of employees leave after 18 months, 89 due to poor culture fit. A workplace culture drains revenues. It's like having a hole in the bottom of a bucket. A toxic work environment costs an estimated $14,000 per affected employee, and turnover costs estimated at 50% to 100% of an employee's base salary. So what goes into those turnover costs? We'll get into those in just a few minutes. That might help, but the average turnover cost is going to be about $8,200 per employee. So if you have 110% turnover, and the easiest way for me to show you or explain how to calculate your turnover is how many W-2s did you print, or did PayMaster print for you for 2021, and how many employees are still working at your location in 2022. That's the easiest way to see what your turnover numbers look like. So why a hiring culture? Your fixed cost for hiring, for training and firing within a 30-day window, what are those costs? So the hiring would be your background screening, your new hire reporting to the state, your taxes, your 30% benefit markup. Those are your fixed costs of hiring. Your training hours. How much time, if you're a CEO and you're training, what is your time worth? Are you worth $100 an hour? Well, and now you're training somebody in a sales position, and that person leaves after 30 days, and you just spent 30 hours in that month training that individual, and now you're at $100 per 30 hours. So that's a fixed cost. And then when you fire an individual, when people leave within 30 days, it's usually due to incorrect job expectations. When they leave between 60 and 90 days, they're leaving due to poor leadership or training. So those are some stats. And so this is based on a 500 employee company. So your fixed costs will be about 14%. Your salaries are 29%. Your training hours will be about 32%. And your interview hours and costs will be about 27%. For whatever reason, that percentage isn't showing there. So that's what the average breakdown of your turnover costs are going to be. And obviously training hours and costs is going to vary depending on who's doing the training. Salaries, once that employee's gone, you've lost all of that salary that you just put through. And how do you create a hiring culture? It obviously starts at the beginning. One of them is promoting from within. One of the biggest mistakes that we make as owners and as HR individuals is that we promote from within, but at a less pay rate than we would if we brought somebody from the outside. And to me, that just doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't we promote from within and pay the rate that we're going to pay for somebody who already knows our company, already knows our culture, and has been successful within our organization, and not pay them correctly what we would pay somebody on the outside? That creates a huge hiring culture. And then it helps your staff enjoy working for you. And then they bring in referrals, and they have individuals that will come in and work just as good as they do. So promoting from within is a huge way to implement and create a hiring culture. Be sure that someone is the correct person. So we put a lot of emphasis on skills and not on technical skills, and not enough emphasis on soft skills. Soft skills cannot be trained. Somebody's compassion, somebody's empathy, somebody's love, somebody's ability to get something done, their integrity. Those are things that you cannot train somebody to do. But of all the job postings that I see or that we edit, I would say that is the least amount of things in responsibilities and experience that we see. We want people to have computer skills. And I can tell you that probably about 99% of individuals now have computer skills. But we put so much emphasis on that when hiring that we fail to see if somebody has a high level of integrity or a high level of honor. We miss that piece because we're so focused on the technical skills because we don't want to train as much. And I'm a huge football fan. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the difference between soft skills and technical skills. Sorry. So Tom Brady, he was drafted at 199th in the 2000 draft. He never played a snap at Michigan, and he was drafted, and he started with the New England Patriots, took over for Drew Bledsoe, and then he is the greatest quarterback of all time. No matter who wants to argue that or not, he is. I am salty that he went to Tampa Bay, but that's here nor there. But he became the greatest quarterback of all time. Why? Well, he went into a great organization with a leader. That's another thing. That's a whole different topic. But number two was he didn't have all of the skills that you would typically see of somebody coming out of college and being recruited as a quarterback. He came out of college with drive, ambition, wherewithal, get it done. He came out with a lot of soft skills, and he worked at it, and he built himself, and it helped him become the greatest of all time. Then you have Johnny Manziel, who was the Heisman Trophy winner. He was 16th in the 2014 draft, best coming out of college that year, and he tanked. He had all the skill in the world. He had everything that you could want from a technical standpoint. Maybe not so much the organization he went to. Maybe not. And like I said, that's a different conversation. But his drive, his ambition, his wherewithal, his get it done attitude, and things like that just were not there. They were not in the right place and now he's doing State Farm commercials. He's not playing football. And that's the difference in the example that I use for soft skills versus technical skills. It's the most relatable because there's still organizations behind the football players. And then you need to identify people leaders and process leaders. There's so many times that somebody is good at their job, we just promote them to be a manager or leader over people. And they may not be a good people leader. They are a process leader. They build processes and can manage process leaders. An example of that are a lot of HR managers and a lot of your HR staff. They are really good at managing processes, managing compliance. But then some of them, you're like, okay, well, you're going to start managing the receptionist. You're going to start managing you need new HR team. So we're going to start managing them. And they panic because they never wanted to be a people leader. They like the process of HR. It's very common in the HR field to have people who don't want to manage people under them. And then you have people leaders. People leaders are very dynamic. They can handle any situation that you put in front of them with an employee. They rally a team. Their team has a good culture. They're the person that you want in onboarding, talking to the team. But sometimes their process of doing things is very limited. So they're not good at meeting deadlines. They're not good at fixing processes from an operations standpoint. And then you have leaders that are both, and those are typically the leaders that you want. And when you promote from within, you want to make sure that you're making your process leaders do process work and your people leaders manage your people, but you want them to have both skills. And you are able to teach a people leader about process and time management and working at it, but you have to make sure they have the soft skills to want to do that, and the vice versa. Diversity. Look outside your comfort zone when recruiting, when hiring. And I don't mean diversity specifically looking for different cultures and ethnicity, although that's extremely important. What I'm talking about diversity is if you are a nonprofit and you need to hire someone, or you need volunteers, and you're in the medical space, and you're like, I can't find any volunteers. I don't know where to look for these volunteers. We need people. We need to grow our nonprofit, but we need volunteers. And you need nurses and doctors and things like that. But you're putting that volunteer position on Indeed. You're putting that volunteer position on GuideStar, on different nonprofit sites. Instead of going to 55 and up retirement communities and posting in their clubhouse for individuals who are retired looking for something to do. It's not going to be anything you find on a website. And most of those individuals at a 55 and up community, they don't care about the internet. They are enjoying their retirement life, but they just want something to do. They don't know that your volunteer position is open. So posting something or getting in communication with your local retirement communities at their social clubs and seeing if anybody in those organizations want to volunteer. That's getting out of your comfort zone. If you're a young organization looking to grow and you want talent, fresh talent, why aren't you going to high schools? Why aren't you going to the college and building relationships in the colleges, speaking every once in a while? Those are looking outside your comfort zones. If you're not a social media person, you might want to become a social media person because that's where everybody's at. Joining local Facebook groups and engaging in those Facebook groups can really help you diversify where you're looking for talent. We have a client in Loxahatchee that we started engaging in Loxahatchee's Facebook page. And we were able to pull 5 or 6 candidates, then 4 of them got hired from just engaging in that site or on that page over a 3 to 6 month period. And training, have a training plan and training program ready. How is this person going to be trained? Who's going to train them? Checking out for 2 to 3 weeks or making a document that shows a 2 to 3 week progression in the training. There's nothing worse than an employee starting and they don't know how to sign into their payroll system. They don't know how to sign into your record system. They don't know how to sign into your data system. So those training things need to be taken care of up front and how you're going to handle them. And here's an example of a training model. Obviously this is going to change based on your level. You may not have team leads, you may not have super leaders, but you need to have a goal of your training and for your training program, and it needs to discuss and include your mission, visions, and values. If you look at those goals, they all have values in them. Innovation, knowledge, integrity, partnership, and productivity. So all of those goals have something to do with a value. And it's important to have a new hire training, have continued employee training. If you want to have mentors, create mentor training, training for your team leads and supervisors and leaders, and just having those. And obviously the biggest argument about implementing and building a training program is I don't have enough time. It's what everybody says. And And time management is something that I have to go back and reflect on every week. Do I have enough time to spend with my staff to train on new things? And the one thing that I say to everybody is you have the same amount of hours in a day as Beyonce. So it's just where you want to put your time and commitment in training. Computer skills get too much attention. Education does not always equal knowledge. Just remember that just because somebody went to college does not mean that they have more education than somebody who didn't, or more knowledge than somebody that didn't. We put a lot of emphasis in this country and in our society on somebody having a 4-year degree. But I've met a lot of people who have tech skills or trade skills and only graduated with a high school diploma that has way more knowledge at a skill and a task. We also put a lot of emphasis on resumes. And resumes are just a document that somebody put words in. And sometimes the resume doesn't tell the whole story. And it's really important that we connect with somebody who seems like they're viable and pull that resume in, and just thinking about maybe we could give them a little bit of training and they could be the person that we want. But again, it comes back to time and how much time people have to actually train somebody. And what you need to know, and the interesting part about this is that because of COVID, this has changed a whole lot. 75% of the workforce in 2024 is going to be millennials and Gen Z. That's actually jumped up to about right now. We have about 75% of the workforce, with a lot of individuals that retired due to COVID and kind of pushed us forward where we have a gap in skill level. So we have individuals that have no skills. And we were actually talking about this before everybody joined, is that there's, I think Rhonda said there, she read a report where it was like, there's 3 jobs for every 1 person. I hope I'm saying that right. And that's true, but it just depends on the industry. But we are getting to that point where our highly skilled workers have moved out of the workforce. We have a gap, and then we're with new individuals coming into the workforce. And with that 75%, they were, most of them were with and without technology. They want employers more engaged, and they identify with Generation Z. So, and Generation Z is a fully technologically advanced group of individuals. And what do you offer? Corporate social responsibility, which is what we've talked about already. Employers, they want you more engaged. They want 91% progression within an organization. So they need you to have a progression plan. They need you to have succession planning. They want to be able to move up. And 43% of this generation leave their job within 2 years. And a lot of that is due to lack of ability to grow within an organization. So when can you start a hiring culture? So you can start it as soon as you get home. But leadership and HR need to commit to the program and know that they're in it for the long haul. Communicate with employees to make sure everyone is aware of your hiring process, your hiring culture, and introduce the program with the leaders in charge. Offer motivation. Give them a reason to want to be a champion for this program. If there's any HR individuals on the call, I'm not sure everybody's position, but you want to be able to elevate yourself from just the HR person. You want to have a seat at the table helping to produce revenue for your company. And the best way for you to be able to do that is to begin building a hiring culture so that you can recruit and retain as much talent as possible. And that's very important.